Hare Krishna, dear devotees and friends. Welcome to our Sunday evening online program. We just witnessed the Gaur Aarti and the Nishingri prayers. Now, I'm happy to introduce our guest speaker for today, His Grace Krishnadas Kaviraj Prabhu. Prabhuji joined ISKCON in Ottawa in April 1974. And within 3 months or so, he had opportunity to see Srila Prabhupada in New Vrindavan, and also was fortunate to receive his Harinam Diksha then and there within a matter of 3 months of joining. He also served as a brahmachari for a couple of years. Then by the arrangement of senior devotees, Prabhuji and Mother Purnamasi got married. Now they have lived as a couple for almost 44 years, serving Srila Prabhupada mission together in various different capacities. I certainly know them as avid book distributors. And they used to come when I was in Montreal. They'll come almost after 8 o'clock just to get only some hot milk as prasadam. And then very happy to start the next day book distribution. Prabhuji has served in many capacities as a treasurer, vice president, and temple council member in Toronto for many years. He is presently on the board of directors of both ISKCON Toronto and Ottawa. And we know he regularly attends our board meetings. Without taking too much of your time, I'd like to hand it over to His Grace Krishnadas Kaviraj Prabhu. Prabhuji, over to you. Haribol.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
I think many of them might have muted, so that's the reason. I can hear you clearly, no problem.
All right. Just 1 second. I had to open on my phone and here at the same time, and so I need to mute myself. 1 second. Okay, that seems to be all right. Okay, does that sound all right? I'm still, hang on. Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody, for attending today. And thank you very much for your kind introduction, Guru Prasad Prabhu. I remember fondly those days coming to Montreal and seeing your smiling face. So I very much appreciate that you remember that also. I just wanted to take a few seconds before I started to say a little prayer as Srila Prabhupada instructed us to pray for him when he was sick, to pray for Bhakti Charu Swami. My dear Lord Krishna, if you so desire, please save Bhakti Charu Maharaj. That was the way Srila Prabhupada instructed us to join, to enjoin him, to enjoin Krishna for him. And also, I just wanted to mention a little bit about Advaita Chandra Prabhu, who passed away in the fall. Such a great soul. Some of you may remember if you were at the Sadhu Sangha last fall in late August that he was there. I happened to roommate with him during that time, and I just found him to be an extremely generous, kind, concerned, and enthusiastic devotee. And it's just so unfortunate that Krishna took him from us so early, because he was so very absorbed in Srila Prabhupada's service. And at one time he was even, I believe, the temple president for a short time in Montreal. Tried to do some things there. So I work in a hospital. And recently, within the last couple of years, or maybe year and a half, I've as you noticed, I've taken to shaving my head again. And one of the things that people often ask me is, what's with the shaved head? And self-defense is very big these days. Everybody is into either karate or some kind of self-defense, and that's often tied in with philosophy, and people seem to have a sort of built-in respect for people who are practicing self-defense because it requires some discipline. And of course, we know that Krishna consciousness requires some discipline. And so I was thinking that it's really a good idea to actually look upon Krishna consciousness as a now I'm just going to light up my screen here and start this. Can everybody see that? Can even one person answer? Can you see my slide?
No,
Not yet.
not yet.
Not yet. Okay, let me hang on a second. Okay. And we'll just go back here. Okay, now share screen. Okay, so I hit share screen. Okay, here we go.
We see it now.
Okay, great. And if I start the slideshow, okay.
Perfect.
Now on my screen, some of the words are cut off on the right-hand side. Is that the same for everybody, or?
Yeah,
No,
we only see the spiritual self-defense.
Okay, all right. So that's good. So I did, somebody may wonder, spiritual self-defense, because Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that the spirit soul cannot be cut by any weapon, withered by the wind, burnt by fire. The soul is indestructible, Krishna says. So somebody may wonder, well, what do you mean by spiritual self-defense? So first of all, I guess what we need to do is understand, are we matter or are we spirit? And of course, we know that with matter is temporary. We know that the material world appeared at a particular time and it will eventually be destroyed. And it is lasting only for a particular amount of time. And especially our own bodies, we know they are born at a particular time and they will dwindle and die eventually. And working in the hospital, I saw many people at that stage of life. And so it is a temporary situation that we are in. And because we are spirit souls who are eternal, we do not like that temporary situation. We are also ignorant in the material situation. We don't have built-in knowledge in the material situation. We have to learn. So we go to school, we learn so many things. We learn how to walk, we learn how to talk. Then we go to school and we learn arithmetic, mathematics, so many things. And we go on learning throughout our lives. But there's always that ignorance. It's even said in the scientific world that the more we know, the more we realize what we don't know. And the more there is that we don't know. So there is so much out there, and we are really if we try to approach anything with just our material consciousness, we will always be stymied. We will be, there will be roadblocks in the way of getting to real, true knowledge. And that leads to suffering. So our temporary nature leads to suffering because we eventually die. Our ignorance leads to suffering because we don't know how to get out of these temporary material situations. And it leads to pain. you know, because we're attached to this matter, to this body, we are in a painful situation, and we're constantly thinking, how can I avoid pain? So when we eat, most of the time in the Western world, we're not eating so much to avoid pain. I mean, we barely even ever get hunger pains. Occasionally, we may not have eaten for a little while, or if you fast totally on Ekadasi or Pandava Nirjala Ekadasi, then you may experience some pain from not eating. But generally speaking, we don't ever eat because of pain. We just eat because we want to maintain ourselves. But if we don't eat, it's a painful situation. So ultimately, we're eating to avoid that painful situation. And the material nature, we are miserable all the time. There are the concomitant miseries of the material world. There's the Adidaivik, Adi-atmic, and Adi-bhautic. So Adidaivik is the demigods, and the demigods are in charge of all the weather. There's a demigod, you know, Vivishwan is controlling the sunshine, Indra's controlling the rain, Vayu's controlling the wind. And these days we've seen on, you know, news and things that there's so many tornadoes that happen often in the United States, or hurricanes that come through, or even big typhoons that come through. That there was one that recently went over Calcutta and the Mayapur area. So these things are always there, that the demigods are always constantly causing pain and difficulty by their, you know, just the way they manage the material world. And of course, it's due a lot to our karma. And because of all these things that can happen to us, well, there's the Adidaivik, sorry, I was talking about the Adidaivik, then there's the Adi-atmic. We also have the pain that arises from our own selves, our material self, and our gross material self, and our subtle material self. Some people are very depressed, even though they may have lots of money and may have a very materially comfortable situation still, because they are not understanding what is the real goal of life ultimately, and they see death coming. They are depressed. And so it's a very fearful situation. And again, the Adi-bhautic, the other living entities, there's constantly living entities that are coming to haunt us. And there's germs that come to haunt us, and there's other people that sometimes interfere with our sense gratification, and then there may be a fight like that. So, you know, where there's constantly, and you can see, even I'm sitting out in my backyard, you may even hear a bird, you know, champing in the background. But that bird is constantly looking over his shoulder. Is a cat going to get me? Is some hawk going to get me? Like that. There's always some other living entity that is going to eat me. So it's a constantly fearful situation. So in that sense, that there's all these horrible, painful, miserable, fearful situations, we want to understand if we are spirit, then we can actually defend ourselves against those horrible situations. So we'll move on then to what is spirit. So spirit, the first thing that we understand from the scriptures, that the Jivera Swarupoi, Krishnera Nityadas, the Jiva is the eternal servant of Krishna and is Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. Sat means eternal. So eternal means, as I talked about before, that indestructible, ever existing, has always been, always will be, has no beginning, no end. Natvevaham jatu naswam natvam neme janadipa natavana bhavishyama sarve vayama takbrahma. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, Krishna says on the battle of Kurukshetra. And never in the future shall any of us cease to be. And he definitely uses the plural, sarve vayam. So we're not part of an eternal oneness. We are eternally individuals, sarve, all, vayam, of us, Krishna says in the Sanskrit. So we are eternally separated parts and parcels of Krishna, and we have an eternal relationship with Krishna. And that is one of the things that can help us become fearless and, in essence, defend our soul from feeling, or not even, the soul doesn't even feel the pain or pleasure, but that identification with the matter is an insult to the soul. So our just being in this material body is an insult to ourselves. We are insulting our souls that we have accepted this material body. So the material body is sat, eternal, chit, full of knowledge. So I was talking before about how somebody always has to go to school, and even now, because we're identifying with this material body more than we are with our spiritual selves, we also have to read and study Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, all of Srila Prabhupada's books, and so many writings that are transcendental, and to help us achieve more transcendental consciousness. So, but once we get there, Srila Prabhupada had devotees ask him all kinds of questions, and sometimes Srila Prabhupada would answer the questions with, you will understand when you get there. So some of the things were just beyond material comprehension. And Srila Prabhupada said, when you become self-realized, when you are actually realizing that you are an eternal spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna, then that knowledge will be revealed. So we are full of knowledge and we can get there. And we are blissful, we're happy. And the process, as I said, Jivara Swarupoid Krishnera Nityadas, we are eternally the servant of Krishna. So performing devotional service is a blissful, happy experience. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that this process is joyfully performed. So sometimes we see that devotees may be a little bit disillusioned with the process of devotional service. They say, look, I'm practicing devotional service and I'm not feeling any bliss. And there are certain things that a devotee does that predispose him from not feeling the bliss. And of course, there are the 10 offenses against the chanting of the holy name, of which the first one, the elephant offense, that's the big one. And that is that one should not blaspheme devotees of the Lord who have dedicated their lives to propagating the holy name of the Lord. So we should not hurt or blaspheme devotees who are working hard to serve Srila Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya's mission. We have to be very careful. And anybody who comes through the door, and we should see everybody that's walking in the street as a potential devotee. So we should not, even when somebody turns us down on Sankirtan, if we're approaching them to give them some transcendental knowledge, we should be very careful not to blaspheme that person because they are a potential devotee. So we have to be very careful against committing the offenses and disobeying the orders of the spiritual master, thinking the demigods to be equal to Krishna, so many different things, and not having complete faith in the chanting of the holy name. If we don't have complete faith in the chanting of the holy name and we think, well, I'm told to chant the 16 rounds, so I'm going to just chant. In the beginning, that is actually good enough. For many people who are coming to devotional service in the beginning, Krishna will often just allow the neophyte devotee to feel so much bliss. But as one has been around for a little while, Krishna may hold back a little bit because Krishna wants and is encouraging the devotee to actually take a bigger step towards him, to do a little bit more, to go outside of the comfort zone, and to do a little bit more in our devotional service. And then Krishna will again open the door via his mercy to the transcendental realm. And I think that many devotees have probably felt that when they've gone that extra mile for Krishna, when they've gone sort of above and beyond the call of duty, you can really feel the bliss and the ecstasy. And so it's just like somebody in kirtan, they can just say, well, I'm not going to dance, I'm not going to I'm just going to stand at the back and just listen, and I'm not really going to take part in the kirtan, then they may not feel the bliss. I mean, if they have some physical impairment that they can't join, that's one thing. But if they can join and they do join and they start dancing, Lord Chaitanya wants us to dance with him. And Lord Nityananda wants us to dance with them. They are encouraging all of us to come dance with us, enjoy devotional service. And what we're doing by not taking part wholeheartedly in the chanting of the holy name, chanting our japa or chanting in kirtan, is we're missing out on that opportunity to join into that blissful process of devotional service. And the spirit soul is ultimately fearless. There's so many stories. Krishna book is full of stories where, especially in Krishna's early pastimes, that the devotees were confronted with many demons in Vrindavan. The story that always comes to my mind is when Aghasura appeared as the big snake. And it's described that, his mouth was wide, hugely wide, and it was wide enough that they could have walked right in. It was like a big cave. And the cowherd boys, if any of us saw a snake that large, I mean, we get afraid even when we see a much smaller snake, let alone a snake that is big enough to walk into. And so the cowherd boys were just thinking, well, we're with Krishna. We have no fear. We're not worried at all. So they just were ready to walk right in. And so that's the fearless nature of the spirit soul. I'm with Krishna. I have nothing to worry about. It's the same way that Prahlad Maharaj, his father was the biggest demon ever in the material world. And he controlled the entire universe. Even Lord Brahma had to bow down and say, I'm ready to offer you all benedictions, whatever you want, because by your austerity, you're controlling the life air of the universe, and you're going to basically crash the entire universe. And so he was a huge demon. And here we have... Back up a little bit. Here, right in there. Oh, and here we have Prahlad Maharaj, the son of Hiranyakashipu. I mean, and he's totally fearless. And why? Because Narada Muni had instructed his mother in the process of devotional service while she was pregnant with him, and he heard all of that transcendental knowledge. And armed with that transcendental knowledge, he was able to live completely fearless. So identifying completely with the spirit soul, Prahlad Maharaj was, threatened in so many different ways. The demons tried to cut him to pieces and they couldn't. His father tried to give him poison food, and he offered it to Krishna, and he was saved from that. And he was thrown off a cliff, and Krishna caught him. And so you can imagine this biggest demon. I mean, he's thinking, I have this little 5-year-old boy who's really bothering me because he's not worshiping me, and he's saying I should worship Vishnu. And so I want to kill him. And he's trying every way possible to kill this little 5-year-old boy when Lord Brahma himself is offering him respect, and he can't kill this 5-year-old boy. How frustrating that must have been for him. It was totally frustrating. And Prahlad Maharaj was totally fearless because he was completely identifying with his spirit self due to that transcendental knowledge. So we are Satchit Ananda, which I just went over. So the spirit soul is covered with the 8 coverings of the material nature. Excuse me.
I'm sorry. sit back.
Okay.
I can see your face better because
Okay, thank you. But it's going to cause feedback if you stay out here.
I'll go.
All right, so the spirit soul is covered, as you can see on the slide, with these 8 material elements. And the false ego is really the most important one, because the false ego gets us to identify with the subtle and gross elements that come after it. But the false ego makes us think that I have relatives, I have a position, I have so many possessions, I have all these different things that are in relation to these other elements. I have a particular frame of mind, I have a particular intelligence that I use to interact with the material world. Maybe I think I've got a lot of intelligence, or not so much intelligence, but we have all these different coverings, and this false ego is the thing that really is getting us to identify with all those other things. So that thinking that we are this material body, that is the root cause of all our suffering. And that is what is the essence of our insult to the soul. I mean, in the insult to who we really are. We are pure spirit souls, and somehow or other, due to our desire to lord it over, we end up in the material world with this false ego, which is telling us that I am something different than a spirit soul, that I have some other nature. So it's getting rid of that false ego, which is which is the most important part of this process of spiritual self-defense. So this false identification, it leads to suffering. The 8 material elements are covering our identity, and they cause the fearlessness. And our material bodies give rise to these necessities and desires which are constantly harassing us, and we're fearful of not fulfilling these. And we perform actions in pursuit of fulfilling these material desires and necessities. And what happens in the material nature when we try to fulfill our desires? We get karma. And just walking around in the material world, you're accumulating so much karma because there are living entities everywhere. And we are not only insulting ourselves, but we're offending so many other living entities. Srila Prabhupada said every time you even breathe in and breathe out, there are so many living entities that are getting trapped in your body and killed. And so that karma is there, and it's accumulating in every one of us, which means that we have to take birth in all those different life forms. And until we again get the human form of life, that whereby we can actually figure out some spiritual knowledge and get out of this. So one may be thinking, well, that's a huge amount of karma. How do we get through all of that? And also it's just, all that karma is resulting in our pain and misery for lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. So the desire to find a permanent solution to this problem of being attached to our human, or not, our human selves, because it's really only the human body is the only time when we are fixed with the intelligence to figure out how to get out of this material nature. So when we actually ask that question, who am I? Where have I come from? Where am I going to? Why am I being forced to die? Why am I being forced to get sick? Why do I have this material body which just causes so much pain and suffering, and my material mind and intelligence which also causes suffering? If I have all these things, how do I get free from this? How do I get free? So we know that there's a dream scenario. If someone is being attacked by a tiger, let's say in a dream, And so you're screaming and yelling, and this tiger's coming towards you, and what can you do? You can't do anything. You're trying to fight it in your dream, and it just keeps attacking. The only way that you can actually get freed from that painful condition, that suffering, and you may already be screaming out, and people in the house may be wondering, why is this person screaming while they're sleeping? And the only true way to get free from that distress is to wake up. So how do we wake up from this material condition? Lord Chaitanya and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, whose appearance day it was yesterday, great member of our disciplic succession, 4 spiritual masters back, he wrote so many different prayers and put them to music. So they were beautiful bhajans. And one of the bhajans is Jeev Jago. Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago. Gaura Chandra Bole. Kota Nidra Jayo Maya. Pisa Chira Kore. So this is Lord Chaitanya is saying, Jeev Jago, wake up, sleeping souls. Wake up, sleeping souls. Why are you sleeping in the lap of the witch called Maya? So this identification with this material nature, which is called Maya, we are sleeping in the lap of this witch called Maya. And we're embracing it. Somebody who is not in spiritual life is thinking, I've got to just keep doing what I'm doing in this material world to try to make a better situation. And Lord Chaitanya is saying, no, don't do that anymore. Wake up. Don't try to fight the imaginary tiger in your dream. Don't try to fight with this imaginary material energy. Wake up. And how do we wake up? We wake up when we ask, what is self-realization? And so we need to get knowledge. In order to approach the platform of self-realization, we need to get knowledge. And we have to figure out, well, where do I go to get this knowledge? And Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. So just like in the self-defense circles, you have a sensei, a master, and he's the one who knows all the moves and is hopefully they don't get to that sensei position unless they have a black belt. And which is being the master of all the different moves and all the different ways in which one can defend themselves. Of course, we know that there are so many things that they cannot defend themselves against, but they think, oh, I can walk down the street and I can be very confident that nothing's going to happen because I know karate. But what happens when a tree falls over on you? I don't think your karate's going to help. You can't cut through the tree that fast. So you need to go to somebody who can bring you to that spiritual platform, and the spiritual master, somebody who is self-realized, Srila Prabhupada, self-realized spirit soul, understanding the true nature of what it is to serve Krishna, to actually be engaged in serving Krishna 100% day after day. Srila Prabhupada was that person. And then Srila Prabhupada, you have the Guru, and then the Vedas. And the Vedas are there. They're like, Srila Prabhupada said, the Vedas are like the mother. So when you ask your mother, who is my father? You may ask so many men, are you my father? Are you my father? Are you my father? But the men, nobody knows. But the woman, who is your mother, she's the only one who can say, yes, this is your father. So in the same way, the Vedas, they say, this is your father. Krishna is your father. And the Guru shows us practically how to engage in a loving relationship with the Father. Today being Father's Day, very apt. So we need to engage in some service. And if you have a father and you can call him up today and wish him happy Father's Day, please do. And we should be doing that every day when we're in Krishna consciousness. So the holy name, chanting the holy name, when we sit down to chant our japa in the morning, we are actually sitting down with Krishna. It's called the Nam Rupa. So Rupa means form, Nam means name. So it's the form of Krishna in his name. So I was brought up Roman Catholic, and I think possibly some of you out there may have also been brought up Roman Catholic. And I remember learning in my catechism that the second commandment is, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, because they said that the name of God is actually God. At least I got taught that when I was in grade school. So that understanding that God is non-different from his name, that is the essence of the Hare Krishna movement. And that's why Srila Prabhupada was able to say to everybody, just chant and be happy. Because when you engage in glorifying and remembering and basically impeaching the Supreme Person, how may I serve you? How may I serve you? How may I serve you? That is what we are trying to do by chanting our japa. So it's like Father's Day every single day. And we wake up and we go, Krishna, you're my father. And what can I do for you today? And we may have so many other responsibilities in the material world. But just as a martial artist is always ready to defend himself, his or herself, we have to be always ready to defend ourselves against the onslaught of Maya. This illusion that we are a material body and that we have important things to do, it often comes back on us, and we forget about, sometimes we forget about Krishna, and we act in a material way. We act in such a way that we're serving this body, acquiring some sense gratification for this body and neglecting Krishna. So the holy name is there in a way that we can constantly remember the holy name. So I can remember being even at my work in the hospital and just trying to constantly remember being with Krishna in the form of his holy name by sometimes chanting out loud, not super loud, but loud enough that I could hear. And perhaps sometimes some of my patients could hear also, and engage them in Krishna's service. And in this way, we can remember Krishna and we can protect ourselves from the forgetfulness. There are two essential principles Prabhupada said, is always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. So by taking the holy name and remembering the holy name constantly, it's if somebody's an accountant, let's say, and they have to work with numbers, it's very difficult to be working with numbers and remembering Krishna. But if you're doing your job in the sense that you're dedicating that job to the service of Krishna, so you're saying, I am going to get some material remuneration from this job, but I'm going to utilize it in Krishna's service. So I'm going to try the best I can to help my wife and children be as Krishna conscious as possible. So in this way, always remembering Krishna by remembering his holy name and never forgetting Krishna. That is what keeps us we are defending our spiritual lives. We're defending our spiritual sense of that I am a spirit soul and not a material body. So that is very important. So the material world does have so many distractions, like our job I was just talking about, and Krishna can, Maya, it's actually Maya's job. It's Maya's function to make sure that the spirit soul is very sincere, so that when we approach Krishna, it's Maya's job to say, you'll only get close to Krishna if you are very sincere and that you really are not attracted by anything in the material world. Prabhupada talked often about being 100% devoted to Krishna. So if we are still have some inkling for sense gratification, then we're not quite there yet. I mean, we can still preach Krishna consciousness. We can still give others Krishna consciousness. We can go out and distribute books. That's probably the very best way to give Krishna consciousness, because you are giving people contact with Srila Prabhupada, who is on that 100% platform. So that's the very best way. But even just remembering and thinking about Krishna, and of course reading Srila Prabhupada's books as often as you can, then one is armed with that knowledge. And Krishna does say that armed with a sword of knowledge, slay this demon of doubt. So he tells Arjuna, you are doubting what we are doing here on this battlefield of Kurukshetra. But if you arm yourself with this knowledge, yeyatamam prapadyante tangstata jamyaham, or sarvadharman prityaja mamekam sharanam vraja hangtong sarva papebhyo mokshayishami masucha. That's like the summum bonum, the highest knowledge in the Bhagavad Gita, that just abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me, and I shall deliver you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear. So if you have any doubt, any fears, just put them aside, because Krishna will take care. If we constantly remember Krishna and be with Krishna, then Krishna will take care. So in the material world, we can understand that if you ask anybody in the material world about the four religious principles, mercy, austerity, truthfulness, and cleanliness, you can almost ask anybody, do you think that these are good things? And almost everybody will say, yes, I believe these are very good things. Mercy, I want people to be merciful to me, so I should be merciful to others. Austerity, yes, we should try to live slightly austere lives so that we can help others and give to them. And truthfulness. Does anybody like to be lied to? No, nobody likes to be lied to. It's a horrible situation when one is being lied to, and it causes so many difficulties in the material world. We know that marriages fall apart due to lying. People break the law due to lying, and they end up in jail, and it causes so much difficulty for so many people. So upholding truthfulness is so important. And cleanliness. I mean, if things are not clean, they don't smell good, they don't look good, you just don't want to be near somebody or in a place that is unclean. So you ask anybody in the material world, are these things important to you? And I pretty much guarantee you that every single one of them will say, yeah, those good qualities, yeah, they're important to me. Then once they've said that, then the way, the four regulative principles that we follow directly from these four religious principles. Mercy. So in the material world, people are eating meat. They are killing. They're not being merciful to the living entities around them. We should try to be as merciful as we possibly can to the living entities around us. And austerity. We should, it depends who we're preaching to, but most people in the Western world have enough money compared to so many people in the world, in the third world countries that don't have any money at all. And so we should learn how to live with as little as we can so that we can help others. You know, we may have a house, that's okay. We may be taken care of, and a car and other things. But if we still have some money left over to help other people on this planet, or help Krishna's cows, in that way, there's so many different ways in which people can be helped by, if we are a little austere and we share our wealth. And truthfulness. You know, the gambling is one of the big things that happens in the material world, and it causes people in Las Vegas. It's said that all of the gambling facilities are controlled by big crime families, by the mafia, however you see that to be. So it just lends itself to crime, and they get all of that by being untruthful. So we need to avoid that gambling propensity, and also the propensity for speculation. Gyanis who go towards the scriptures and speculate about what they mean often end up going down the wrong path and thinking that we are all one, that we are part of a single energy, and that we just merge into that energy, that we are God, essentially. And somehow or other we become separated from God, and if we just figure out that we're God again, we'll go back to that. I mean, it's so ridiculous. How can you be God and then not be God? It doesn't make any sense to me. But real philosophy of the Vedas, as explained by Srila Prabhupada, give us a true understanding. It's not raining here. So we need to follow these 4 regulative principles and cleanliness. We see that if somebody takes a lot of intoxication, that's not being austere, because they're utilizing everything that they have to get drunk all the time, and they also become unclean. So intoxication, we have to avoid intoxication. So these 4 regulative principles are there. Of course, if we're just meeting somebody on the street for the first time, Srila Prabhupada didn't say, you've got to stop eating meat, you've got to, stop having illicit sex, stop gambling, and stop taking intoxication. You can't just go up to somebody and just start doing that. But gradually, as we are following these things ourselves, and we're setting the example, and we're getting people to understand the importance of these 4 religious principles, the mercy, austerity, truthfulness, and cleanliness, then we can actually approach these people with that understanding, and they can then come to understand the importance of following the 4 regulative principles. They won't follow them unless they consider them important. And following these 4 regulative principles is actually being true to our true spirit self. Our spirit self, our true self, has nothing to do, our eternal identity as servants of Krishna, has nothing to do with these 4 things: eating meat, taking intoxication, gambling, and illicit sex. Those things have nothing to do with the spirit self. They actually increase our attachment to the material world, and they increase our karma in big ways, and just keep us caught in the samsara, the cycle of birth and death. And so if we don't follow these, we have internal problems and external chaos. We have the constant problem of battling our internal selves, but I'm a spirit soul and I shouldn't be acting like this, and we constantly will be kicking ourselves and hurting, in a sense, fighting with in ourselves if we're engaged in these sinful activities and giving up our spiritual selves. And externally, there's always chaos when these things go on. So it really does behoove us to follow these four things. And then it enables us to be the change that we want to see in others. We want to be purely on this platform. We want to be, just Srila Prabhupada is the founder Acharya of ISKCON. Acharya means teacher by example. So Srila Prabhupada will be the only founder Acharya of ISKCON for the next 10,000 years. There may be many other Acharyas within this disciplic succession, but he is the founder Acharya. And each one of us can become Acharyas in our own way by just following this process of Krishna consciousness, engaging in devotional service and giving devotional service to others, and avoiding the things that bring us down from that platform. So this is how we can move on in the material world. So that just brings us, back to what the Hare Krishna movement is all about. The Hare Krishna movement is, in the Brihanaradiya Purana, it says, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva, 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 Gatir Anyata. Chant the holy name, chant the holy name, chant the holy name. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, there is no other way, no other way, no other way for self-realization. So, giving the class today is a little tricky because normally I really like to, being an actor, I've acted with Bhakti Marg Swami in many of the dramas over the years. And one of the things that I feed on is the audience and seeing the reactions of the audience and relating to people. And I'm not able, hopefully just by looking at the camera, that I've been able to be looking at you and that you've felt some personal connection here. But the Maha Mantra is why this movement exists, the chanting of the holy name. It is the key for our own spiritual salvation and for the salvation of the entire planet. And it really is needed in a way more now than ever. And it seems like this strange situation that we're in right now actually is lending itself in some ways to more people, at least if they have an internet connection, to more people being connected with the holy name. There's so many devotees that are, right now they're organizing a 24-hour kirtan for Bhakti Charu online. And there are so many kirtans, and we could sign off from this Sunday feast and we could go to the Sunday feast in Winnipeg or in Regina or in Calgary or in Vancouver. and we could have attended the one in Halifax earlier today. So, there's constantly, if we want to take Krishna consciousness seriously, there are so many ways, especially these days, to have the association of devotees. Even though we may not be able to be physically in their presence, we are spiritually in their presence. They're speaking right to us through this internet, this wonderful thing. I mean, it almost seems like Krishna didn't allow this COVID thing to happen until this internet was completely set up and we could actually use it to sell books and to preach Krishna consciousness and to encourage others to take up this process, which is joyfully performed, and to have this ecstasy. That is what we are hoping in this, Srila Prabhupada, I remember one time in one interview, he was asked, what is your goal? And we want everyone to be happy. That is what Srila Prabhupada came for. He didn't come to convert us to anything. He didn't come to try to impose a religious system on the world or anything like that. He came to give happiness. And it is simply by taking the holy name, as Srila Prabhupada so often said, chant and be happy. And if we take the Hare Krishna mantra, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare, Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare, Hare. If we take this Maha Mantra and hold it dear in our hearts and give it out to as many people as we possibly can, then our way to our eternal relationship with Krishna, where we are constantly serving him and we are free from all the fear and suffering and everything, then our spiritual defense is absolutely assured, and we are there in the spiritual world with Krishna, never again to come to the material world. So I thank you very much, and I'll turn it back over, I think, to Guru Prasad Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, very relevant, information you provided, boosting our, commitment to the process of devotional service, reminding us that some basic things which are very guidelines for us. Of course, it's the time for devotees also to ask any questions, should they feel any questions they have or they want any clarification. It's an opportunity to ask Prabhuji, and he has also been to many holy dhams. He has participated in many programs, so it's an opportunity also to inquire, gain something from Prabhu's experience. So please feel free to ask him anything relevant. Thank you.
Anybody?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
The main reason why we keep shaving the head of people and keeping the ponytail. So one of the comments is, it helps one to get relieved from the bodily conception of existence. We always think that we got good hair and this, and we got a bodily conception without thinking that, oh, we are servant of God.
Right.
And there are so many other reasons. And when devotees leaves the body, Krishna pulls the soul from the topmost chakra, which is on the head under the shiksha. This is
Yeah. Do you have a reference for that Krishna pulled by the Sika? Because I've never seen a scriptural reference to that. But
this has come from Desire Tree.
From who?
Desire Tree.
I don't know. I'm not hearing that. Desardly?
Desire Tree.
ISKCON Desire Tree.
ISKCON
Desire Tree. Yeah, okay. Well, it's not actually, I mean, where did ISKCON Desire Tree get it from? Because I've never seen a scriptural reference to that. What I know is that the Sika is mainly there to show that we are bhaktas. The Gyanis, they shave their heads. They're transcendentalists also, but it's a much more difficult path of transcendental realization. And the bhakti yogis, they have the shika, which actually distinguishes, it's a flag. It distinguishes the bhaktas from the Gyanis. That's the significance that I have understood always. And I've never...
From Prabhupada.
Yeah, from Prabhupada. I've never heard Prabhupada say that Krishna grabs you by the Sika and pulls you out.
And in reference, Srila Prabhupada has given in Leelamrita also something. The Leelamrita, Srila Prabhupada has given some information on the Shiksha.
Yeah, on the Sika? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, one of the main, one time Srila Prabhupada was asked at the airport by a woman reporter, why do you shave your head? And Prabhupada looked at her and said, why do you shave your legs? And she said,
She looked a little embarrassed.
and she looked quite embarrassed, but she said, to keep cool. And Prabhupada said, better to have a cool head than cool legs.
Better to have cool head and warm legs.
Yeah. So
I've got a question.
you should ask it on the thing
I
so
can't.
everybody can
I
hear.
don't know how to do it.
Oh,
You could repeat it.
so did you have a question, Prabhu?
Well, we should need more time to read the Leelamrita complete so that to understand what Srila Prabhupada explained.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Reading the Leelamrita is very good. There's so many books now that are out there about the history of ISKCON, and it gives a lot of good memories and different personal viewpoints of that history. Because Satsvarup wrote, I mean, the Leelamrita is an amazing work, and he worked really hard on it and did an amazing job. But it's really good also to hear from so many of the other, like Jamuna Devi and Hari Sori and just so many, you know, there's so many devotees. Almost every devotee that was with Srila Prabhupada in the very early days has written some kind of memory book. And it's really great to read those books because you really get a great sense of Srila Prabhupada's sense of humor. Prabhupada was very much a humorous person. Even though we see many pictures of Srila Prabhupada looking very serious, but Prabhupada would laugh and he would crack jokes a lot of times with the devotees, and he would really, he was enjoying Krishna consciousness very much. I mean, he took it very seriously, but at the same time, he was very joyful about the process.
See if somebody else has a question.
Yeah, has anybody else got anything?
Yeah, in that connection, Prabhu, actually, it's a very relevant thing you have mentioned about reading many of these books. The recent one being from Shamsundar Prabhu, Shooting the Rhinos. So, very, very interesting account. You can see how devotees were attracted. You know, they did so much for Srila Prabhupada beyond their own, imagination. They probably would never thought of doing those things, but they did it anyway. So
Right.
that actually shows the potency of such a pure devotee. So it actually brings out what a pure devotee is like. You know, you're right. Prabhupada was simultaneously both spiritual and also very practical. He was a down-to-earth person. So he knew exactly how things should be done, where problems can arise. So he was able to guide devotees in building such in a big project like, Juhu Temple, Vrindavan, Krishna Balram Mandir, the Mayapur project. You know, he managed so expertly.
Yeah.
So it's one thing. Another thing also, what I want to say is, thanks to online, we can also look at Prabhupada memories where devotees actually sharing through video. And each probably segment is over 10-15 minutes, I guess. So you can see how devotees were, observing so at close quarters their interaction with Srila Prabhupada. It's amazing. I mean, it's very inspiring as well to watch this, and then we know who actually is Srila Prabhupada is by watching these videos.
Yeah. Okay. Purnamasi has a question here.
Okay, I have to explain. It's
Oh,
2 parts.
well, you have to say it very loudly from where you are.
Okay, it's sort of 2-part. You were speaking about becoming happy and that Krishna consciousness is blissfully performed. Yes. And Prabhupada said at one point, someone asked, how do you tell a devotee is becoming advanced? And Prabhupada said, you will see he's becoming more and more happy. So my question is, Lord Chaitanya in Shastaka at one place says, you can do anything and you may handle me roughly by your embrace. You can do anything and everything. And for myself and others, I've seen sometimes in devotional service, we're not feeling happy. We're feeling dejected. We're feeling not really blissful and happy. And I'm wondering how to understand that sometimes we feel Krishna's not making us happy. And even if we know it's me, that I'm not fully, how do you get through that? What to do? Yeah, when we feel we're being handled a little roughly by Krishna. We know it's Krishna's mercy. We know he's there. We know Prabhupada's there. But still, it's...
Did everybody hear the question?
Anybody?
Yes, but the question is clear.
Okay. I think I actually went over why that happens in the class. I talked about the offenses, and I talked about
Yes.
not having complete faith and things.
Yeah, but sometimes there seems to be no material. Krishnadas Prabhu was talking about when he had to go out for a year with no association, no other devotees, no every day. And he said it was difficult. He would have to talk himself into, he was feeling a little alone, but he just kept going. And I'm sort of answering some of it myself, but
Yeah, I mean, that's really,
anyone has been around.
that's really the process, is that you stick with it, and you utsahan nischayadaryat tat karma pravartanat, enthusiastic devotional service, endeavoring with confidence, and those things are really, really important in our devotional lives. And so even though, I mean, what we're saying is that what the question is how is one, if one has lost their enthusiasm, how does one get back their enthusiasm? Right?
Partly how sometimes in the head that Krishna's there, that Prabhupada's there, that the philosophy is perfect. If we do it, we know in our head that yes, the outcome is positive. But sometimes when you're in the midst of a slump, or for whatever reasons, whether it's offense, whether it's Krishna testing, I've heard that too. If Maya will test and push and see how much you want to serve Prabhupada and Krishna. So sometimes there is an unexplainable dip, and you think of course, we always have offense. We're trying to clear them, but
yeah, I did talk about that in the class.
Yeah, but anyway, I may have missed some. But how to get over it, one, and how to keep remembering that it is there and that this is temporary.
Right.
I think
Well,
maybe.
I mean, I think one of the things that happens oftentimes is that for some reason, due to either an interpersonal interaction with devotees, where we have some difficulty, some argument or some misunderstanding, and then that gets us on the mental platform, and then we start to worry, and then we kind of get into that downward spiral of well, I'm not feeling the bliss so much, and I can't really go there anymore, and I'm not getting it. How do we get back on the
positive side,
the upward spiral? We're on the downward spiral. How do we get on the upward spiral? And I think it really is a matter of just going back to the very basics. Why did you become a devotee in the first place?
getting back into good association.
Oftentimes marriage counselors will do that when they encounter a couple, and they will say, why did you get married in the first place? You must have had some love for each other when you got married. So when we originally came to Krishna consciousness, we must have had some faith that got us starting to chant and got us starting to perform devotional service. And so now that we have even more knowledge, we should go back to that original time and think, okay, am I going to make the decision to leave Krishna consciousness if I keep going down this path of not feeling enlivened and not feeling good about devotional service? Am I going to keep going downward to eventually going, well, this has nothing for me? Or am I going to analyze the situation armed with knowledge, which comes from reading, and will I analyze the situation and take a help from God brothers and God sisters also to analyze the situation, so that we get a proper view of where we are and how we can lift ourselves up. That is how to get back on the right track in devotional service. And I see Purnamasi nodding her head.
Yes.
Not everybody else can see, but so she's happy.
Association.
Yeah, association of devotees is so important, and getting help. If you feel at any time in your devotional service that you're having trouble, having difficulty, get help. Don't let it go. And in fact, in Toronto, we have a mentorship system, and I think, in Ottawa, it might be good to sort of start some type of mentorship system where you have a mentor, and everybody should have a mentor, and you can go to that person and say, and even at the GBC level a few years back, they were encouraging every single GBC member should have somebody that they go to and that they can say, I'm having difficulty, or I'm having a misunderstanding or something, somebody that they can reveal their mind to. So this is very, very important, and this is how to get back on the right track in devotional service. So I think that hopefully answered the question. Okay, how are we doing for time?
We have another 8 more minutes, and should any other devotee would like to ask other questions, that'll be fine.
As a wife, elephant offense is offense to the spiritual master, not the first offense. The elephant offense is criticizing the spiritual master and leaving his instruction. The first offense is criticism of other devotees.
Hatimata, that's the first one. That's the first offense.
Okay. And the other? and the other one was Bhaktivinoda Thakur's disappearance day, not appearance day.
Oh, disappearance day, yes. Oops, sorry.
As a wife, just realized I did it.
Okay, any other questions? I can just relate to seeing Gaur Nitai in the Artik prior to my giving class, and I was present in Ottawa before I joined the temple when there was just Panchatattva, a picture of Panchatattva on the altar, and it was a year and a half before Gaur Nitai were installed. And I can remember when they actually was more, because I joined in 74 and they were installed. And they were installed in the summer of 75. It was on Balaram's appearance day, 1975. So this will be the, what is it?
We were married in
the
76
45th, the 45th.
We had our
Not now.
1 year.
So this is 45 years since Gaur Nitai were installed. And I was just talking with Ilya before that the deities were bought in Vrindavan by Amshu Prabhu. I think Guru Prasad remembers Amshu. Very nice devotee who was the temple president in Ottawa from the fall of 1974 until sometime in late 76. So for about 2 years, he and his wife were there and family. And anyway, he and Shashvata were in Vrindavan, and they went to a Murtiwala looking for Gaur Nitai for Ottawa. And they eventually came into this one Murtiwala's place and saw the deities of Gaur Nitai, and they were just enthralled. I mean, Gaur Nitai in Ottawa are just gorgeous, gorgeous deities. And so they immediately Amshu put a down payment on the deities. And just a few moments later, I think it was actually when he was coming back to pick them up, to bring them back to Canada. And he was getting everything ready, and Vishnu John Swami came in at the time and saw them and went, I want those deities. and the Murtiwala said, well,
They're
they
sold.
belong, they're sold, they're going. And he said, I don't care, I'll pay twice as much.
Yeah, don't add the other if you don't know. for
So I'll pay twice as much as he paid. And the deity was like, nope, sorry, they're gone. So our deities are considered, to be extremely gorgeous deities. And when Srila Prabhupada was in Toronto, in 1976, we drove the deities from Ottawa to Toronto, and we had them on the altar in the Toronto temple. And Srila Prabhupada came in for darshan after his morning walk, and we had arrived with the deities later in that night and during that night. And so Prabhupada had not seen them yet. And so when he came in and the deity doors opened, and Srila Prabhupada offered obeisances, stood up, and then he stood there for a long time looking at the Gaur-Nitai altar, at both the Toronto Gaur-Nitai and the Ottawa Gaur-Nitai deities.
Yeah.
And he really, really appreciated, and it just brought to mind when Prabhupada was in Atlanta and how much he appreciated, when he was singing, Nitai Padakamala, Koti Chandra Shushitala. So Srila Prabhupada was just really appreciating that these two brothers have come to save the world. And they're there in Ottawa, ready to save all of us. So, you're fortunate to be there. And unfortunately, not everybody can get into the temple these days, but I know that obviously the online darshan thing is happening at least once a week, if not more. And it really is wonderful. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I haven't seen them for ages.
Thank you, Prabhu, for filling in. I was wondering whether, because I know that Prabhupada never made it to Ottawa, so I was wondering that how Prabhupada would have reacted. Thank you for bringing that little bit of information, as well as your involvement actually in bringing the deities or a meeting arrangement for many things. I think came from Toronto. I think you and Lakshmanath Prabhu shared that information a couple of years ago. That on the day of installation, you had to do so much. Both of you have done tremendous service in the early days.
Oh, it was a real marathon to get the temple up to standard so that Gaur-Nitai could be installed. There was so much work to be done before that installation. I can remember, and even the last couple of days, I didn't sleep at all one night. So and that was the night before the installation. So I had been up since 4 o'clock in the morning, and then went all the way through 4 o'clock in the morning and right through to the installation, which was at about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I was just so tired. I can remember I was trying to read the Purusha Shukta prayers, at the corner of the fire yaga, and I almost fell right in the fire because I was dozing off. I almost fell right into the fire a couple of times. And I remember Jagadish was doing the fire yaga, and he looked at me like, "What's wrong with you?"
Because you actually started falling toward it.
Yeah.
Can I tell a quick Gaur-Nitai story? Ask if there's time.
How much time do we have? I think we're done, aren't we?
We can go for another 5 minutes for sure, Prabhu.
5 minutes? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Just turn it a little bit.
So Purnamasi.
Can you hear me from here? No, don't put it.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So they were very, very merciful also in traveling and allowing us to travel with them. There was a big festival. I forget what it was. And everybody, of course, wanted to go to New Vrindavan for this festival. But Rupa Vilas was temple president there, and he said, well, who do we keep back? And he said, why don't we take Gaur-Nitai? So we figured a way to bolt their bases, and we had a bus at the time. So they were affixed very safely and carefully on thick plywood at the back. My husband, Krishnadas, Gaur, Lakshmanath were sitting at the front, and Krishnadas drove all the way back. Varuni and I sat in the back with the deities, and every hour or two, we were making and offering fruit salad because we couldn't cook on the road all the way down. So we went all the way down from Ottawa to New Vrindavan. When we got there, it was pitch dark and the road was not paved at all. And some of it had big holes and cave-ins at the side. So Krishnadas was their chariot driver. We got in safe, but at midnight. And do you remember what the festival was?
No.
But anyway, everybody in the temple got to go, and Gaur and Nitai were so merciful that they didn't go with Vishnu John, but they went traveling in a bus a couple of times anyway.
Yeah.
With all the Ottawa devotees.
Yeah. In fact, one time for preaching, we had Gaur Nitai up near Kirkland Lake in a little place called Nellie Lake.
On a book distribution.
And we were, doing Sankirtan to all the northern communities up there. And Lakshminath, myself, and Gaur, and we had a lot of stories we can tell, but we had the deities with us for almost 2 weeks. They were up there in northern Ontario, so they've graced northern Ontario.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and they got to go in the little Ottawa bus, not the big Vishnu John Swami buses.
Right.
But they took devotees around. Yeah.
Yeah.
They wanted to travel.
So I guess that's probably it.
Yeah, you save it for another time, Prabhu, because when you are able to come in person, we'd like to hear more from you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
look forward to it.
Early days experiences, and yeah, it's always nice to relish what was, how things were in the past, and what was, amazing things happened actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. On behalf of our congregation and my personal behalf, thank you very much for kindly accepting to be with us this evening, and hope to see you in person very soon.
Very soon,
Krishna
hopefully.
permitting.
Yeah.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
I have a feeling it'll be a few months, but
We'll see.
it was just, I want to thank you, Guru Prasad Prabhu, for making this opportunity available. And I want to thank all the devotees there for really looking after that temple in a very nice way and furthering. Prabhupada always thought that the capital city of Canada was very important, and the preaching center there is very important. So, keeping Ottawa going, and everybody who is there doing even the smallest thing that you are doing is so important to helping Srila Prabhupada and his mission in that area. So thank you very much.
Thank you again for your encouraging words. Hopefully we will live up to our commitments in serving this Sri Gaur Nitai. Once again, thank you both. Hare Krishna, we'll see you again some other time.
Okay. Is it sign off then? Are we all done?
Yes, yeah, it's the right time actually to finish off. And I also want to thank our participant online for being with us on this Sangha. And Srila Prabhupada ki.
Okay. And,
Sri Gaur Nitai ki.
Yay!
and please get my obeisances. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha.
Kripasindhu Bevija Padidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.